Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We are admitting many people. Thank you all for joining. So just give us a moment before we get started.
Wow, big group.
Yeah, it's great participation.
Hello, I'm Meg DeBrito, and I just want to say we're excited to have so many people here. If you have questions during the conversation, we'd love it if you'd throw that in the chat throughout the conversation so that we can get to those questions at the end and respond. So please share them with me, share them with all during the conversation.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. We'll just take one more minute. People are still coming in. We had over 127 people register for this very important topic today. So really excited to have you all. Thank you for making time. All right. All right, Meg, should we go? Should we get started? All right. Well, hello, good afternoon. My name is Isabel McDevitt, and welcome to the ImpactPHL program, the Catalyzing Effect of Impact Investment Capital in Minority Business Enterprises and How to Deploy More. That's a mouthful, and again, a very important topic. I want to thank everyone for joining, and I especially want to thank our sponsors who make these monthly events possible. ImpactPHL is very fortunate to have such an incredible network with so many wonderful sponsors and supporters. So thank you for being here. Again, my name is Isabel McDevitt. I'm a member of the ImpactPHL Program Committee. I'm also a strategic advisor at the Enterprise Center. The date of this panel is particularly important. This week marks the 39th annual Minority Enterprise Development Week here in Philadelphia. MedWeek, as it's known, is designed to both elevate and celebrate the important role that minority business enterprises play in the economy, and to also empower and support MBEs in their growth. So hopefully we have many entrepreneurs on the call today. Over the course of the conversation, we're going to hear from diverse founders and also experts in the field who provide access to capital. So without further ado, after we just talk a little bit about the goals for the session, I'm going to turn it to each of our panelists to quickly introduce themselves. But our goals for today are to articulate the gap in investment in diverse businesses and the need to create more access to capital, to demonstrate why investing in diverse businesses is good business, and to offer clear paths for how impact investment is deployed on the ground. So without further ado, I am going to turn it to our panelists. I will start with Ian, and if you could each say your name, title, the organization you work with, and how you plan to contribute to the conversation today, that would be wonderful. So let's start with Ian Lawrence.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Isabel. My name is Ian Lawrence. I'm the Executive Vice President at the Enterprise Center. And my goal today is really to share with you how the Enterprise Center is really cultivating and investing in minority founders, diverse founders. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to you, Jason.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Ray. I am the CEO at Zenith Wealth Partners based in Philadelphia. I hope to contribute some perspective on raising investment capital from mission aligned or impact investors, along with how we work with companies to structure these investments. So happy to be here. Nice to see so many familiar faces too.
Wonderful. And Shital? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shital Bahira. I'm the founder and CEO of Hidden Gems Beverage Company, and we make a drink out of avocado seeds. And I'm here today to talk about, I guess, the entrepreneurial side of approaching impact investing and how we've secured funding for our business and how we've built it so far, and deployed the resources that we've got from other impact investors.
Great. And do we have Mike yet?
It was just admitted.
Yes, I will jump in to say yes.
Uh,
He just joined us, and I will
well-
pin him as soon as I can find him. Apologies.
Well, Mike Brown, there he is.
Jeez.
He's also known as Isabel McDevitt today, apparently. So we'll change that. But Mike, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Mike Brown, the president of the 360 group of companies. So we're a union mechanical contracting firm and program manager for different governments.
Wonderful. All right. Well, so thank you. And as you can all hear, we're in for a treat today. So just to set some context, in America, less than 2% of startup venture capital is invested in businesses with diverse founders. In 2020, Black Americans made up 12.7% of the US population and only 4.3% of our nation's 22 million business owners. As is well documented, this lack of investment only perpetuates the racial wealth gap in America. And this disparity also demonstrates a missed opportunity for investors. We must intentionally create opportunities and pathways to deploy capital to these talented leaders and viable businesses that have been overlooked. But despite these challenges, there's strong evidence that investing in MBEs is a key driver for the economy. According to a recent study from the US Senate, the number of businesses in minority communities nationwide is growing. Over the last 10 years, minority enterprises accounted for more than 50% of the 2 million new businesses started in the United States, creating 4.7 million jobs and sales totaling $700 billion. So let's hear from the experts. We're going to start with Jason and Ian, and I'm going to ask you both the same question. Please describe your work of your organization as it relates to facilitating MBE's access to capital. We want to hear specifics and an example or two of how you are bringing much needed capital to these talented businesses. So Ian, let's start with you and let's hear a little bit about the Enterprise Center.
Sure. Thank you, Isabel. The Enterprise Center, for people who don't know, is really 3 organizations. And we're a family of companies that really have a shared mission, and which is really about promoting equitable economic growth, access to wealth building tools, and really bringing 3 sort of pillars that we kind of think about. One is knowledge capital, social capital, and financial capital. I know we're here to kind of talk about financial capital, but all 3 of those are really essential for any business to really increase its size and really scale. And so one of the things we do with the CDFI that I run here at the Enterprise Center is we really try to have some targeted funds for our entrepreneurs. Because as we all know, debt is not the only sort of capital that entrepreneurs need. So we do have debt products, and we have some specialized debt products that we work with entrepreneurs with. But more specifically, we want to have a range of capital products to work with entrepreneurs. Like Isabel just mentioned earlier, there is a real need for patient early stage capital for diverse founders. And that's really one of the areas that we're focusing on at the Enterprise Center, to really bring that sort of patient capital to entrepreneurs. And we do have 2 entrepreneurs on the call here that we did help in that particular way, and we'll hear more about those later.
Thanks, Ian. And Jason, from your perspective, can you just share with us why this is so important and how impact investors can get involved from your experience?
For sure. Well, I mean, it's a pleasure to be here with Ian, considering a lot of the work that we do with the Enterprise Center to help companies going through their pipelines, build financial models, come to terms on like evaluation, think about ways that they can structure fundraisers. I think it's important to, at least from Zenith's perspective, to matchmake companies that are looking for investment capital and, intentionally mission-aligned investors to helping them think about how to structure that and put that forward so that they can grow their business and execute on their objectives. I think this is a big need in the market, as we've experienced. A lot of companies, tend to not speak the same language as investors, and it's hard to define impact, or it's hard to define terms in an investment. So we really work to be an intermediary to help companies understand what it means, what it will take, what they need to show people in order to close investment. And we actually, one of our customers is a seed stage startup called Health Center Hugh. They just closed on a seed round last week with a few venture investors and individuals. Just put their website in the chat. We help them build their financial model, their valuation, and set the terms for their seed round, which they closed last week. So we're really excited about that, and we're hoping to do more of that as time goes on.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to turn to Mike and Shatil to tell their stories. And Mike, if you could start with not only giving a little bit more detail to your important work, but also to talk a little bit about your experience with raising capital, and as you've grown, what kind of opportunities and challenges you've experienced, just as a business and specifically as a minority-led business.
So we might have to be here for a couple of days, but I'll give the condensed version. So we at my company, which we started off as a union mechanical firm, there's no amount of capital that you can raise when every time that you add an additional employee at $6,000 a week, and we got up as high as 80 employees in about 3 years. So we were the second fastest growing construction company in America, which is not a good thing to be, especially after 2008, when banks didn't even want to look at you. But the biggest challenge, I would say, is understanding capital, having the right, financial partners that work with you through your different growth stages, right? So in the very beginning, we were pretty good at managing kind of cash flow, and I used to run a larger HVAC business, so I kind of had a pretty decent team when I started. But growing from 0 to $1 million is one challenge. Getting from 1 to 5 is another challenge. And then when you start getting over the $10 million range, at least in my business, no one really wants to deal with you anymore, and they kind of leave you hanging. You're too big for your typical funding from the traditional sources like PIDC and Philadelphia Industrial Development Corp. And some of the smaller community banks that we would use at the time, and it just became a huge challenge. But in addition to that, one of the things that we do not have as minority businesses, as Ian said very well, is anything that helps you in those dry runs that you have, right? So there's it's easy to get contracting, lines of credit, factoring, and all the bad types of debt that's out there. But those things don't pay your overhead when you're waiting 6 months for a set of projects to start, right? Not only that, we're a company that's built on technology. So we're a 3D management business. So everything we build in 3D first. And not to sound kind of rude here, but they didn't like hearing that coming from a Black person, Black Hispanic at that. Even if I tried to say it in Spanish, I don't know how many hoops I had to jump through to prove to people that we knew how to do 3D modeling before 3D modeling existed. Even though we did live casino, even though we did Rowan University, couple buildings, University of Pennsylvania, Geisinger Medical, and these are all, some of these are $billion-dollar facilities. Our resume still didn't resonate, and with diverse firms, everyone always wants to ask, well, who's your partner? Who's your mentor? Who's your, whatever. And then to add to the worst part is we were a federal 8A company, which we still are, which basically you're wearing on your chest that as an owner you qualified because you have less than $1.25 million in net worth. So that made the situation even worse. So a lot of the programs that are out there for diverse firms will set you up for failure. And I think the whole way of capitalizing a diverse firm has to really change. And I'll speak more to the value of a diverse firm later on in the speech, but I hope I answered your questions the best I could.
You did, and you gave us a lot to think about. So we'll definitely be circling back on some of those. Sheetal, you are at a very different stage of your entrepreneurial journey, and you've got a lot going on. You've got sustainability, you're a WBE as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about Drink Reveal and your work, as well as your journey so far with raising capital?
Yeah, well, the first thing that I'll talk about is my business and a little bit about why we do this. So the brand that we have is Reveal, and what we make is an avocado seed brew. So we basically get avocado seeds from people that were throwing them away. We extract the antioxidants to create a drink that's good for your gut health and has 3 times more antioxidants than a green tea. And the concept of this business is that it's like a more sustainable version of an iced tea. So we are saving these seeds from going to the landfill, and through our proprietary extraction process, are also making those seeds compostable. So we're taking them out of the landfill entirely. And I feel like we're still in the very early stages of our business. Even though we've been working on it for almost 4 years now, a large part of that was R&D, and a large part of our challenges with raising money for this business and for this concept is just the extended amount of R&D, and the fact that, like, for another business, you could go in and, you know, like if I was just going to make iced tea, I could order tea by the ton, you know, like I can order as much tea as I want. But for us, we have to go find avocado seeds. We have to find a way to get them to our place. We have to find a way to process them. And all of that stuff is very expensive. So a large part of our funds were needed for R&D. And because of that, you know, we're high risk. We don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if the processes that we're going to do are actually going to result to, like, oh, yes, we can actually commercialize this. A lot of our funding actually happened through accelerator programs and through grant funding and through angel investors. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially being a woman, a minority, and an immigrant founder, I definitely did not qualify for any kind of loans. I had just graduated from grad school. Like, I don't have, like, you know, I moved to this country in 2017, so I didn't have credit score. I think my bank account, like, was going to give me a $300 credit limit, and that too if I put the $300 down. So, like, that's the position that I was in. So definitely working with the Enterprise Center, that's where I got some of my funding there. I did work with the 2CY, the Exelon Foundation's Impact Investment Group to get investing there. So those are like the main groups that I've worked with. But yeah, it's been definitely a journey and a challenge, and we've been looking and getting as creative as we could possibly get. And there's a lot to talk about with all the challenges that we've had with finding funding.
Well, thank you. And I know on today's call, we have some entrepreneurs and businesses that might be in a similar position, and it's, you know, sort of the startup mode. And then we also have investors. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Ian. And if you could talk a little bit about, you know, specifically what it takes to work with businesses at these different ends of the spectrum. You know, we heard from Mike a little bit about, you know, once you reach a certain size, you need different types of capital. And you might qualify for different types of capital, maybe less on the debt side and more on the equity side. So Ian, if you could talk a little bit more about, you know, how the Enterprise Center and groups like it are able to work with businesses throughout their life cycle, and then specifically how investors can kind of get involved across that spectrum.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things we do at the Enterprise Center here is we make sure that we meet clients where they are. And that was one of the things we did when we created the pre-seed seed fund, is that we found that a number of diverse founders just simply was not getting the look, the touch from the traditional, venture capital sources. So we created a fund that was really geared towards bringing these creative ideas to market. And when you look at the sort of ideas that are out there, it's tremendous. Actually, yesterday we had a pitch competition, and the winner is doing, her startup is in the biotech field, and it is about creating artificial corneas. This is an African-American founder who just didn't have the network, didn't have the social capital to really get funding for that particular business. So we created the fund really for those kind of individuals, like this young lady, like Chattel, to be able to bring these great products to market. And we are focused really on several areas. One is we are focused on consumer packaged good, including food, as well as healthcare, as well as technology, as well as there's general technology in the space. And so we meet clients where they are. And as we know, a number of diverse founders don't have that friends and family around to really help them. And then we created that fund to really be that friends and family, to really give them that $250,000, to really allowing them to ideate, to really allowing them to buy some time bringing their products to market. But once they get to market, we are also here at the Enterprise Center to provide debt. So we don't think debt is bad. We think debt is appropriate where debt is supposed to be appropriate. And so we have debt products who can then help grow the business a little bit further along, that's priced appropriately. And one of the things we have, and I wanted to highlight a couple funds. So we have one particular fund called Grow Philadelphia, and that fund is really because of a partnership with Brandywine Realty, who wanted to really increase the capacity for contractors in the city, and they provided us funding to help us create a fund that provides below market interest rates. I think that's one of the issues we have in just the overall ecosystem is minority founders. When they do actually get approved for loans, they actually get high interest loans. And so we want to be able to give them below market rates that allow them to conserve their cash flows. And then at the end of this pipeline, and I think if you listen to our CEO, Della Clark, she's talking about really an end-to-end financial sort of model for minority entrepreneurs, where at the end of this growth cycle, we then want to graduate them onto Innovate Capital Partners, which she's a leader there that can truly help entrepreneurs grow their business and scale it to meet the needs.
Thank you, Ian. And, just as a little plug, there are ways to get involved as investors in these funds. And there's also ways that organizations like the Enterprise Center, CDFIs, and others can work with impact investors if they have a specific area of interest to actually create opportunities, just like the one that Ian just described, the Grow Philadelphia Fund that is, a partnership with Brandywine.
Yeah, if I could just add a little bit to that please. As well. So yeah, certainly, like if there is a sort of idea or some sort of area you want to have an impact in, to reach out to me and we can sort of sit down and ideate around how we can bring some product to market that fits a particular need. One area and one opportunity really that investors can sort of play a role in. I did mention that we had a pitch competition yesterday. We're having a second pitch competition in May 2024. The top prize is going to be $250,000. It's open to not only tech companies, but just companies in general. So it's a diverse set of businesses. And I'll drop the link in the chat too if you want to apply for that opportunity. But certainly if investors want to be part of that, sponsor, provide capital for that particular pitch competition, we certainly be willing to talk to you.
Thanks, Ian. And I'm now going to kind of turn back to Jason. So Jason, you're in an interesting spot because Zenith Wealth Partners is also a minority-led firm and has a lot of angles to the work that you're doing. But can you talk more specifically about the role that impact investing can play through your advisory firm, focused on reducing the racial wealth gap? I mean, that seems like a huge, daunting problem to solve. But if you could talk a little bit more specifically about what that looks like for you and Zenith Wealth Partners, that would be terrific.
For sure, Isabel. No, thank you. And it is a big problem. It's going to take a big solution and an effort to really change the dynamic of racial and gender-based wealth inequality. You know, here at Zenith, we don't feel like there is too much of an access problem in investments, or right. It's more of an advice problem, right? And like folks that are historically cut out of, you know, expert high-level financial advice because they're underrepresented, they're people of color, or they're single women, right? So creating a platform where we can deliver relatable, accessible advice to those folks, whether they're a business owner, you know, whether they are, you know, the president of a foundation, or whether they're a family and they're hoping to make a plan, right? It's all about the plan and the advice. So, you know, we have a few metrics that we're tracking to really measure our impact on this bigger problem. One is the net worth of our customers when they start with us to where they are today. How many clients we serve. So we serve about 300 clients today. We have 6 advisors. And, you know, as we continue to grow our advisor count, I think that will continue to broaden our expertise and just like the diverse nature of advice that comes from our team. And hopefully will, you know, inspire new services, right? I'd speak to, you know, when we first came to market, we were advising individuals and institutions on how to create an investment policy. A lot of folks had in these investment policies value alignment, right? And then particular returns that they wanted to see, but also sleeves in there for investing in early stage companies or investing in, you know, local companies. And it's led us to start to search for, you know, companies that are local or companies that are run by, you know, diverse founders or entrepreneurs or management teams, to try to matchmake them with our investors who are looking for this asset class in their investment policy. And, you know, just by doing that work, it's somewhat turned into a service where we work with the entrepreneurs. We found that a lot of them, well, again, they weren't speaking the same language as our investor group. So helping, you know, come to terms between the investor, whether that's the institution or the family, and the business owner, to help structure a raise that not only fulfills the asset class that the investor was looking for, but also helps with the capital need from the company. So over the last 18 months, we've helped 120 companies access about $25 million of early stage equity financing. And, you know, I think we're going to continue to go along that journey, and folks here can support by, you know, if you're looking to raise money as an entrepreneur, we'd love to chat. You know, I think we've got a great partnership with Ian and would welcome his advice as we go through the process to evaluate if any of the Enterprise Center's products could work. But if you're an investor and you have an investment policy and you want to invest in, you know, impact investments or, you know, diverse investors, or you have a specific consideration with your investments, we'd love to chat about that as well and see how we can help.
Thank you, Jason. Well, hopefully everyone's reading their chat, because that's where all the contact information is. So I expect that you'll be getting lots of emails later. I want to turn it back to Mike, and we're just going to keep kind of going around here. So Mike, you made some pretty provocative comments, which is great. And you talked a little bit about, you know, how a lot of the MBE certification programs, diversity and inclusion goals in procurement and contracting, and those certification processes can actually work against, you know, a firm that and a business that's really growing and has, you know, superior capabilities, regardless of who's at the helm. So let me challenge you and ask you, what should those types of certifications look like, or should we even have them? Because obviously diverse businesses play a huge role in the market. And, you know, clearly access to business development is important. But what would you recommend to really sort of balance the need for some prioritization, but without, being detrimental to a business that is growing, that is also minority led.
So I think the biggest issue with the certification process is that it hasn't been redesigned since like 1968, right? Like we're going on Nixon, old things from back in the day. It's turned more into a goal that people in large corporations or government officials tend to rely on. So like Philadelphia is notorious for saying, oh, we had 35% diversity on our construction, which is not true. But, and everyone, like the first thing they say, if they see that you're a minority owner, is, the first question they ask you is, are you certified? They don't, and it stinks because you only have like 30 seconds to pitch what you do, and you're spending 2 minutes talking about whether you're certified in a certain area or not. And then, I just had this discussion with the state of Pennsylvania and Governor Shapiro is like, you have this transportation bill, let's say, for instance, right? Well, no minority firm under the DB program will ever qualify to be a prime on an infrastructure project because there isn't an infrastructure project out there that's less than like $10 million to be a prime. I mean, other than, putting up signs or cones somewhere, right? So I think that everybody's totally missing the boat. And in addition to that, what happens is the value proposition of being a diverse firm. So we knock it out of the park because at the end of the day, we get what the value proposition is. Like, for instance, to give you a great example, even though I started off as an HVAC contractor, we figured out, fixed, and are running Atlantic City Housing Authority, right? Why is that? Because I'm Black, grew up, I didn't grow up in the worst neighborhood, but it wasn't the best either. Went to high school with people that ended up living in that housing authority. And, you have a different perspective that, honestly, to tell you, no well-to-do non-minority firm is going to have the perspective that we have. And with the amount of tremendous disparities that are happening in public housing, for instance, or school district of Philadelphia is another one of our big clients, right? How do you connect with the kids? How do you connect with the teachers? How do you do all that? That's way more important. I laugh, if you came into my office, we have everything. I mean, we look like Benetton over here. We have Koreans, Black people, people that are different sexual orientations, because it's so great to get different perspectives. When we go into our war room, the goal is we come out of there with solutions, and the way you think is based on how you were raised and the experiences that you had, right? I had, the pleasure of being raised in Spain, right? And then coming to the US and learning English when I was 8. That gives me a whole, like, I'm watching government now and going, man, you guys are more screwed up than we were in Spain. We had a coup back in but it's, having those different perspectives is really what matters. And what I think is a better process is, instead of focusing on revenue, is focusing on the equity generation and the assets that you're building on. I mean, we spend more time looking at our balance sheet than we do our income statement. And, I can explain, in more detail how that is, right? And you're just not seeing that. So the programs that exist now that are all revenue based, they do not help businesses grow. And that's case in point by, I tell anybody at Office of Economic Opportunity, back when I used to be an advisor for them, name your top 5 minority firms, right? And they don't even know who they are, which is sad because I know my top 5 customers, right? And but anyway, that's a whole other story. But to answer, you directly, is the programs are missing the boat. If you're investing in a minority firm because you think you're going to get an advantage because it's Philadelphia and they want to have, that's not why you should be investing in a minority firm. You invest in a minority firm because they didn't get any financing out of the gate. They survived. They don't have a rich relative in most cases, and they grow the business to $37 million, and they do it with working capital. Like, if you see how I manage money, you'd be like, holy crap, right? How do you run $1 million plus every, 15 days with no lines of credit, right? But I've gotten so good at it that, I keep my money, the money on the sideline as much as I can. But, if like, we know how to do balance sheet financing in ways that you couldn't even imagine. And I think I got Margaret over here. When we met with Goldman Sachs up in New York, they were like, where the hell did you guys come from, right? It's an untapped market. Look at how many billionaires are coming out of, Black, Hispanic, emerging growth markets. When I did my MBA, the first thing they did was take us over to India to show us how someone that didn't have anything all of a sudden creates $1 billion company. That's what you want. I mean, you don't want to invest in a company like Ford, that you get a dividend and then, pray to God that they don't go on strike and go down. You want to invest in Amazon when it was still a bookstore, right? And that's who we are.
Well, thank you for that. And that value proposition around the cultural competency is really, really significant. I think Jason wanted to comment a little bit on that.
Yeah, thanks, Isabel.
Yeah.
I gotta chime in on the diverse. Look, we're at our firm, we're advisors. We help our clients execute their objectives. So, I have a perspective, but it is influenced by the clients we work with, and primary and secondary evidence would show that, underrepresented people have a unique drive for success because there's less resources available to them. So investing in somebody because they are a minority or because they are a woman, actually, in our opinion, and what the research and our evidence would show, is that factor alone may be the one that drives alpha long-term and outperformance versus the rest of the market. So I think focusing on underrepresented people as an investment, not using people as an asset, but making sure you have a lens to say, like, well, how is this team going to perform better than the rest of the market? Do they have diverse perspectives? Have they had to overcome challenges that other people may have not? And if we make that investment or if we support this company, are we going to unlock and catalyze something that really didn't exist before because they didn't have access to it? I agree with what Michael said and just wanted to add that caveat of, like, this is the reason that I think folks want to make impact investments, not because it's charitable, because it's like, you're going to make more money.
Absolutely. So I want to hit it back to Sheetal to talk a little bit about this issue of translation and creating a common language with investors. So I know you've taken advantage of some of the resources at the Enterprise Center and through other organizations about really putting together your pitch. And so if you could talk a little bit more about sort of what you found to be most successful in terms of your pitch, but also, differentiating yourself within the market, and what advice you would give to other entrepreneurs who are bringing together so many great benefits to their business, from diversity to sustainability.
Yeah, I'm so happy to talk about that. I've definitely worked with the Enterprise Center and all of their resources a lot to work on my pitch. And I think some of the biggest things that have changed in the way that I was doing my pitch, I think I very much structured my original pitch on pitch competitions, and, they have their slides, their list of slides, and they're like, oh, you have to have your problem, you have to have the statement, your solution, what's your market? And while those things are important, I think one of the things that is connected really well with us is that the storytelling part of it, because especially for minority-owned businesses, I think Jason said it really well. There's a lot of challenges that we face that maybe other people have not. And I think being able to tell that story and to be able to demonstrate how you've been able to overcome those is a really important part in showcasing your particular talent in building and growing this business, because it's not often the same environment as everybody else. And then also being able to put your ideas into numbers. I think that was a really big thing for me. I come from a very creative background. I'm a food scientist. Before that, I was in the fashion industry, and going from there to be able to talk numbers, which I think a lot of people that are in the investment space, yeah, it's great that you have a vision and idea, but like sometimes it's the numbers that count, and being able to talk both languages, and then also being able to figure out when you're talking to somebody, which one is it that they connect more with, and kind of lean into that. And that's a skill that I've had to build. And I think that's really something that you'll get out of practice, honestly. One of the things that I did was I practiced with anyone and everyone who would listen to me. I pitched like to every pitch competition that I could ever go to. And I saw a question here in the chat about whether pitch competitions are great. And I'm going to say yes, and also maybe no. The yes part is it's great to get out there. It's great to build network. It's great to build community with other founders. The part where I say no is that they might not always translate to actual investment. And I don't think that we've gotten a lot of direct investments through pitch competitions, but the pitch competitions have been valuable in building community and building network. And I think the other part of it is especially the pitch competitions that need you to pay money to go to them. I often find that those are the ones that give you the least amount of network for some reason, and no one's really interested to connect with you after. But that's just been like a personal observation of mine. And I find that the pitch competitions, which are more rooted in like a theme that you fit into, happen to be much more beneficial than like random pitch competitions without any kind of guidance. I hope I answered that question.
No, that's great. And thank you for getting into the chat. I do want to sort of pivot it back to Ian to talk to, to address sort of the concept of a pitch competition and how to create a pitch competition that's maybe a little bit more valuable, such as a larger prize and services attached. But also, Ian, ask you as part of that to talk a little bit about what Mike brought up about how businesses need to not only bring in revenue, but really build their balance sheet with assets, and how does the Enterprise Center's approach work towards helping businesses grow those balance sheets so they can be more sustainable and grow in the longer term?
Right, thanks. I'll actually start with that. At the Enterprise Center, we are really focused on balance sheet building, exactly what Mike said, because your balance sheet is really what's going to carry you through the times when that are lean, for example. So we really focus on bringing resources to entrepreneurs so that they can, one, first understand their financials, because I think there's a huge gap between what the entrepreneurs know how to do, which is their business, and really using their financial statements to tell them how their business is doing. So that's the first thing we try to do, is make sure that entrepreneurs can really understand their balance sheets, their income statements, what's driving those two statements, and then really focus on how do we translate the revenue that they generate into asset building activities. One of the big focus that we want to have is how do we get entrepreneurs to buy their location of business so that they are able to use that asset to build their companies. Because one of the things that we have seen is gentrification also happens with commercial tenants, and so we want to be able to prevent that. And really focusing on bringing a product to market that allows entrepreneurs to purchase their building, and really focus on some of the other areas. As it relates to pitch competition, we do believe that pitch is important. That one, it allows entrepreneurs to really tell their story to a wider audience, to build networks. But the difference with what we do here at the Enterprise Center is we sort of bring you in as a family, and the day after the pitch, you still remain part of the family. And what we do is we still bring on a number of services to continue to work with you after the pitch has occurred. So on the front end, we have resources, knowledge sharing, connection being built before the pitch, and after the pitch, we continue to work with you. Like I mentioned earlier, we had a pitch competition yesterday, and even for the ones who didn't win, I'm already going to reach out to them, because there was a couple ideas that didn't actually win anything, but I still think they're investable ideas. I think the ideas are great. And so it gives us an opportunity to then turn around and invest in those companies, even though their pitch wasn't successful for the competition itself.
Thanks, Ian. And yeah, and I think just again, understanding that we've got a lot of diversity on this Zoom right now. If we think about pitch competitions as sort of a clearinghouse, you know, to make connections, encourage impact investors to pay attention to those pitch competitions, to attend them, and also, you know, be supportive of the organizations that run them, because you might find, you know, the next great idea. So we are coming up on the last 10 minutes. So please do put questions in the chat. I'm trying to follow along. There's so much great activity in there. But there was one question that came up that I want to send over to Jason to start, and then any of our panelists can weigh in. So question about reparations. The city of Philadelphia is beginning to look into reparations. And so what is your take on, you know, that process? And also, you know, would that play a role, and could there be sort of an investment role in the reparations conversation as it relates to closing the racial wealth gap?
Yeah, no, appreciate you teeing me up first. Look, I'm all for reparations. You know, the country was built on the back of enslaved people that haven't been recognized to date in the way that they should be. So I'll leave that there. I don't quite know how that, you know, it all works out. I'll give an example. We're working with an organization in Minneapolis who just won a large multi-million-dollar grant from a national foundation to provide money to Black, Indigenous people of color to buy homes, to start businesses. So they're putting money directly in people's pockets with the grant that they use. And it's kind of like a form of reparations. And alongside that money just going from the organization to individuals to purchase a home are resources, right? So things like the, you know, Enterprise Center, people can get loans, people can use the new money to get a mortgage, they can get financial advice, right? There's wraparound services, not just capacity building, but services for people to use the money that they just got to take the next step in their wealth building journey. You know, I think that can be done at scale, right? I don't know where the money comes from in Philadelphia. So whoever asked that question, you know, like would love to learn more. But I think it is an effective way to spur not only, you know, and really address the thing that we care about most at Zenith, addressing the racial and gender-based wealth gap. Like reparations have a direct impact on that, particularly for Black people. And I think it's a great way to spur not only changing that narrative and dynamic, but also creating economic activity. Right? There's been plenty of studies that show the trillions of dollars that will be added to the US economy if we reduce racial wealth inequality, right? McKinsey put out a study in 2020 that said like $4 trillion if we bring parity to like household wealth. So I think like this is an effective way that it could be done. But again, I haven't heard about it at all in Philly. So if anybody has, please educate us.
Thank you. Yeah, and certainly want to open it up. I'm gonna see if Mike has any thoughts on that question, but also if you can provide a little bit more of your thinking also around what Ian was saying around the role of real estate with businesses and how that can play a role with building a balance sheet, and sort of whether you've taken advantage of any real estate opportunities as you've been growing your firm.
So as far as the reparations go, I'm not an advocate for reparations. What I am an advocate for is equality in contracting, right? I think that's important. Equality in home buying, no more redlining. You know, it's funny because even though and somebody will kill me for this, I'm not one for affirmative action. I am 1,000% for anti-discrimination, right? And I think that if people didn't discriminate, which I don't know how you would do that, but that's not what I do, right? Things would be a lot better. But, you know, they tend to use what they seem as a handout to discriminate even more. So they give you like $10 on one side and then take 100 from you on the back end. I've seen way too much of that, right? And then what was your second question?
No, I just didn't want you to be on the spot about the reparations one, but you answered that beautifully. I guess I was also including just the point about real estate, and the role that real estate can play for a business as they try to build their balance sheet.
So let me expand that, right? In real estate is great for a restaurant owner, right? Real estate might not be great for a contractor because it pins you down, right? It's not the real estate that you're looking at. On your balance sheet, you're looking for property, plant, and equipment, right? Any way you can start owning fixed assets. What I found is the best thing to do is just buy a company. And if it has real estate, then woo, that's the big gift. If you have an issue where you have poor accounting and you have all different kinds of things going on, there are opportunities where you can acquire a smaller company, or in some cases, I've seen the opposite happen, where larger companies, and you pick up all the things that you don't have from those companies, right? I think that's just as important as real estate. I mean, you need to be looking at also, the human resources aspect of things. If you're never going to grow, and somebody put in here, that they were bootstrapping their companies, and we tend to do a lot of that. And you go and you look at someone else, and you're like, man, how do they have it so easy? Well, they have a whole staff. And one of the most important things, I say this all the time, is your company's not worth anything if you're the company, right? Like, you can't sell yourself, to someone. So your company is worth a lot when you can step away and the company still operates, right? And that is a combination of a lot of different things. And then the last thing I would say is, here's where the equity piece comes in really great, right? If you borrowed $3 million and you put $3 million in cash, right? You'd have a net zero on equity, right? You owe $3 million, you got $3 million in cash. If somebody invests $3 million into your company, you immediately go positive, right? Because it goes straight to equity and you have cash. So you're liquid and your equity position goes up. This is what I'm talking about when we start talking about balance sheet financing. And there's and I've dealt with a lot of different people now in oil and gas and things like that, where they will plant $100 million in someone's bank account, charge them interest, and they're not even allowed to touch the money, so that they can go in and win a large contract, right? And at the end of the day, it's just so that you check all the boxes and you show size. We don't do enough of coming together. We don't have friends. So like, one of the conversations earlier is another way to build your balance sheet is you become good friends with Della. You become good friends with PIDC. You become good friends with some kind of lending institution and bankers, right? You have to start thinking of how do you grow the equity in your firm. And it's not just contracting. I mean, contracting or contracts that you get or sales as a retail company, that's a given. You have to figure that out at some point. But like in your case, where you're a startup and you're looking for the next big thing, and those friends will get you so far along, and it'll negate so many mistakes that you'll make trying to take on work when you don't need to take on more work, right? So anyway, with that said, back to your answer, I think real estate is one component, but there's so many others. There are things that grow a lot faster than real estate. I bought a company. It was a $500,000 company. It did $12 million last year, right? Wow. That was, I'm not getting that out, and at a 12% return. So it's not, that's doing a lot better than real estate. But real estate is for those of you that aren't in the business that I'm in, that is the one thing that does start to help you out with your balance sheet. So definitely.
Thank you. Well, I think everyone has talked a little bit about sort of building social capital as an important part of being a successful entrepreneur. And thankfully, ImpactPHL has put together this program today in order to build relationships. So, with that said, unfortunately, we only have 3 minutes left. So we're going to do a quick lightning round to each of our panelists. And I'm going to start with you, Sheetal, of what is the call to action for this group about how they can support Drink Reveal and get involved with your incredible business model. And we'll hear from each one of you as it relates to your organization before we close out.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna say, well, if you have any connections for us, anybody that would be interested to sell our drink, anybody that would be interested to distribute or invest, I'm obviously open to any kind of help that you may have or any ideas that you may have. I would love to hear. So definitely add me on LinkedIn and stay in touch. I would love to hear from you.
Thank you. All right, Ian, what's your call to action?
If you are looking to invest in any of the businesses that we work with, we certainly want to talk to you. If you want to invest in the Enterprise Center. So we're always looking for opportunities to work with not only impact investors, but just investors generally, whether you are a family office, whether you're an individual investor. And then also for any entrepreneurs out there who have great ideas and looking for funding, please reach out. We were happy to have a conversation, happy to connect you with resources here at the Enterprise Center and just throughout the city.
Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Great to see everybody. Please schedule an intro call with our team to get your personal financial plan, an institutional investment policy statement, or a business plan. We're open for business. We have 6 advisors that hopefully can meet the needs of any of your objectives. So looking forward to learning more and hopefully engaging with folks as a follow-up.
Great. Mike?
So I'm going to hit it from another angle. For those of you that are investors, you got to, reach out to us, get to know who we are, right? I'm not the only, there's plenty of Mike Browns out there. What you're going to find is we start, Enterprise Center knows this. We can write novels and books on all the experiences, good and bad. I joke around. I was getting ready to write a book, 1 million mistakes that I made that you shouldn't make. Put it on Amazon if you're a construction owner. It has turned us into tremendous program managers and representatives for government agencies and everything else, and others that are in the city as well, because of just what we've been through. And a lot of us have survived and grown businesses in ways that you couldn't even begin to imagine. So, we're a wealth of knowledge, and at the same time, we're always willing to share it. So take advantage of it.
Thank you. So I really want to thank ImpactPHL, Corey Donovan, and Meg DeBrito for supporting this program, and my fellow program committee members, Karen Pollack and Mike Kosak. The great news is we have one of these once a month. There's also great resources through ImpactPHL. Opt Impact is a way to get more engagement around impact investing opportunities. So check it out. It's optimpact.org. And then there is a social event coming up to celebrate the Page Hurdle Fund. Again, Page Capital is about creating procurement opportunities for minority enterprises, and that's on November 15th. So this is a way to build your social capital. There's also lots of ways, even if you are not an impact investor, to support minority business enterprises. Go out and buy products that are made by these firms, hire minority contractors when you can, but also really understand their value in the market. And thank you all so much. Really appreciate the conversation. This will be recorded and distributed to all of you, so feel free to share this with anybody else who you think would be interested in this topic. This is just the beginning of this conversation. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Isabel.
And thank you to our presenters.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Thank you.